So if you're gonna go up to the guy and be like,
Yeah, that's
"Yo,
it.
you need to brush your teeth.
Yeah, let's get into
Those
that.
things are grimy." I'd be like, and he's like, "No, they're not." I'd be like, "You blind."
I'd be like, "Here's a
blind?
mirror, bro.
Yeah, I'd be
That's
like,
some grime up in your grill."
I don't think you'd have to tell him that though. I think as the girl, like if his teeth are a disaster,
She'd probably be out.
Just
like,
go. Don't
yeah,
have to
yeah.
tell him.
Gus-
Be like,
All right, what's up, everybody? We did the female 5 red flags.
7.
7.
There's a lot more.
The endless red flags, and then we're doing today male red flags. So
Don't worry, there's a lot there too. We had to
Yeah.
cut a lot out.
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
It's gonna be just as hard on the dudes as we are on the females.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah, and forgive me, I am got some kind of crazy congestion stuff going on, so if I'm sounding weird and moving mucus around, that's what's going on.
Joe's under the water. He's under the sea.
That's right, under the sea.
Yeah, right on. So let's get a brief synopsis of why we're doing the red flags, right? We're doing this to help people in dating. They're arbitrary, okay? These are like our personal ideas of what you might want to look out for.
Like Mike
And-
said, it's like, what would you tell your little sister?
Yeah.
You know,
What would
if
you
she
tell
was
your
dating?
daughter?
Right.
Yeah, so
right.
that's kind of what we're doing. I'm sure there's a bunch that you'd probably come to mind. So put those in the comments. Share them with us. We want to know. And any experiences you've had that might dovetail off of some of the ones that we are bringing up here today.
And then we're gonna try and talk about our own red flags.
Yeah. Because everybody's got some red flags, you know? Like,
Yeah,
that would be actually really fun.
it is.
To put yourself under the microscope and be
Yeah,
like,
like
yo,
what-
what are my red flags? What if that's a weird scenario. What if I was dating my own daughter, you know? Like, try and do that.
Ooh,
It's a hard gymnastic
Ooh.
Well, I
exercise.
think a good question would be is would you want your daughter dating you?
Yeah, that's exactly what
A lot of people. I
don't
wonder
know.
how they'd answer that question.
they'd have to snap into the lie detector test, and we have to know the truth there. Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Let's open up with a prayer then. You want to get this one, Mike?
Yep. Lord, thanks so much today that we can come here and just discuss these ideas as men. Hopefully, Lord, you can take it and use it and help the audience learn from us as we discuss things that matter as far as relationships. In today's world, it's hard to filter through the volume of people that we can come in contact with, and we just hope to shed some light on what we think are good things to look for. And as well as just kind of be unbiased. We're here to talk about both men and women, and in the end, just hopefully promote better relationships. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Better relationships.
Better
That's what we
everything's a
need.
relationship.
Maybe instead of better
Everything.
relationship, it's like don't waste your time and
Right.
ones you shouldn't be in.
Life's too short.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yep, there's no doubt about it. Well, you know what? We're going to get a lot done in these lives if we pay attention to making the better decisions. You know, and I think that when we're evaluating red flags, we're evaluating those future potholes that will turn into just cliffs that you're driving off the side of that could potentially ruin your life. You're talking about divorce. You're talking about taking your kids from you. You're talking about broken hearts and ruined spirits. So it's serious stuff. I mean, and the issue is that, like Joe had brought up last time, is you're in love. So if you're in love or you're having feelings for a person, that's when detecting the red flag really becomes like it's crucial.
Arduous business.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you got to put yourself aside. Like Christ asked us to deny ourselves, so you'll be doing that. You're gonna have to deny yourself and that Twitter patient cocktail of delicious, amazing dopamine and everything else, and say no. Hold the phone on that. That is a red flag.
Yeah.
and not forget it.
And the one
That's
thing, like a couple of guys in the red pill space, I think bring up a good point is women should involve their either like a father figure in their life in their dating process.
Yeah.
Could be a brother, could be their father. I think
That's an
I think
awesome
that's
idea.
such
That's so
wise,
true.
because that's how it was. I think in the past,
Yeah.
like a man had to prove himself to that girl's father
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
he's going to even consider allowing that to happen.
Even consider,
true.
yeah. It was
And
like-
so I think that if I had to say a first step, like don't just do it by yourself as a
No.
woman, because I don't think girls can.
Or
Like when
use the
they're
Cosmopolitan magazine.
oh my god!
Don't do that. It's written by women.
yeah.
Not only
Go,
that,
they'll have some guys, some quality dudes that can, that know dudes, because
Yeah.
women typically know women. Like, it's
Yeah.
same for a guy. Like, if you're going to go out and check out have a good mother, have a good sister, someone like you have a great sister that you're able to kind of like bounce off and get feedback from. So I mean, like that's
Mhm.
super invaluable when it comes to like checking a mate out instead of
Yeah.
just going to your friends, which are usually guys, or for the girls are usually girls. So
Yeah.
Especially in the younger years. Like I've asked multiple girls that are older, like, do girls like 18 to 24 have the capacity to truly pick good men?
Do they have the
And none
capacity
of-
to even choose good friends
or good
Yeah.
meal
or good
choices.
meal? Like I don't
And,
know, and that goes for the guys too. So give me a break, okay?
Children.
That's just
Yeah.
young adults, right?
And
Yeah.
so it's like, trying to do that on your own, you're just gonna burn yourself a lot. And
Yeah.
Is it necessary?
Get ready to be a burn victim.
Well, if you want to
Welcome
learn,
to life.
if you're into learning and not becoming a burn victim, then you got to put the due diligence down first,
Yeah.
which is not so exciting. And like John was saying, it's oftentimes not very exciting because you're in a relationship with someone that you like, and then all of a sudden, red flag occurs, and you're like, "This is going to destroy my happiness."
yeah,
And then you have to really be honest and be like, "Well, it's more important." Like you
but
said,
like
to
that's
save
what
time.
we began the conversation sort of saying is we all got red flags. I have them. I know that if I was going through a filter process of like probably 80% of dads out there be like long hair, who knows? He might be,
Yep.
into that kind of drug culture and whatever. And then before I know it, I can't get a word out because of what I've been typecast, my cliche that follows me around. And you just get that into the wrong hands and you're done. So, I mean, is that a red flag or is that just people, making assumptions based on
we
the way
all
you
make
look?
surface level assumptions, so you got to
We have-
you
yeah.
got to plan for it.
So, I
Judging them
mean,
books
that's what
by
I'm
them
saying. And I
covers.
do have certain red flags and we all do, So, I mean, I guess we're measuring the size
We're gonna
of the
get into that
flag,
later, for sure.
How
We're
big
gonna
is
do
this
that.
sucker,
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So what, let's pull
What's
them up.
first? You got to
Let's do it, guys. This is exciting. I'm really excited for this. This is going to be great. So yeah, here we go.
There's really no order to them.
There isn't. It's
There
just
just are-
in terms of like what's most important.
Yeah, no, there's no order.
No, this is like you could see any of these, and then it'd be important.
Yeah.
Lacking habits. Oh, do we want to start off with the Christian side of things, or do we want to end with that kind
I like
of
that
like
when we end, personally.
because it's more holistic?
Yeah.
Kind of can get a chance to tap into everything. I agree. What do you think?
Yeah,
Mike?
I agree.
Okay. All right. Over prioritization of the girl. It's a big one. So like she's just like obsessed with you. And it's like to the point to where you could think about him thinking of something else during that day, but it's probably you like 99% of the time. Like he's infatuated, obsessed.
And he's willing to sacrifice what, like I would say, just say his mission in life. He's willing to sacrifice his
Okay.
friendships.
All
He's
right.
willing to sacrifice. Maybe he's like
What college he's going to?
his job situation. Maybe he's like trying to build a business, and now suddenly he's putting less and less effort into that, more into you.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, you're like literally sacrificing over this girl you just met so much.
That's the key point, though, is just met, right?
Mhm.
I mean, like, there's going to be a period in time where, as a believer, and most men will encounter this at different levels, and it's going to be varying in difficulty for certain men, depending on their passions and who they are going into it. And that means, are you career-minded? Do you have, like, serious goals and hobbies associated with your hobbies and passions? Because if you have a wife, she's going to come first. Before those things, before your, friends, before all these things that maybe had that place of coming first. And that's a tough transition, but that comes later after she's after I'd say,
that's like an-
talking
it's an
about like being
earned commitment.
engaged,
Yeah.
And it's an
something like
earned
that.
commitment, just like Mike said.
Yeah.
It's earned. It's not just met. And that's important too, because like if you just met somebody and they're already like investing that much into you, they might just be immature, which is probably a lot of what's going on. They're young. They're just full of, they love this person. They think they're the one. And why not do all that stuff, right? If you feel like it. But as time progresses, you start to become more mature, and then you realize like, okay, if they're treating me that way, they could treat other things that way while we're together. Number one, it could be a character trait of like someone who's overly impulsive and just throws themselves into things without properly thinking them out. Because if you're being really like thoughtful about it, you'd be like, wait, they don't really know who I am, and they're already sacrificing things that they've, like you said, really important, like things in their life, like their
Which
job.
I mean, for a girl who's on the other side is a red flag. That's a tough red flag to pick out. Because they're going to interpret that as commitment, devotion. It's going to look
Well,
like
you got to put like a
flag.
time window on it. It's got to
Well,
be like
I
2 to
agree.
3 months or something, like where they know who I am. We've spent time.
It'll be
we've
a
shared-
short-term green flag, though.
Exactly.
Right.
Short
There you
term.
go.
Eventually,
But I'm
they'll
just
lose-
saying it's a
they'll
hard one to pick out because
Yeah.
it feels like love coming in their direction. So I agree. The timeline in the relationship is essential when evaluating is this a red flag? Because like if it's in the beginning and all of a sudden everything and you become the center of his life on the second, third date or whatever. I mean, that'd be so hard to figure out, wouldn't it? But maybe it does happen. I haven't seen that happen very often, but it probably does happen more often
I've heard
than
like
not.
guys telling chicks they love them after like 2 or 3 dates and just stuff that blows like what?
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
I was always afraid to even say that. My
Or
whole
you know,
life.
like putting off like family stuff or something else is really important with like somebody, like a friend or like previous commitments that are like important for this girl that you just met that you're really excited about.
Well, I heard a good explanation of it is
Definitely.
and it was from some of the red pill guys because they're not like you don't like chivalry. They would say like chivalry is earned, and so a lot of this quote simp behavior is a unfair, like basically an unequal exchange in the relationship
I
in
agree.
this dating.
It's not like holding a door open for a girl. It's not like being polite or just being like overall like the way you treat a woman, but it's more like I guess that chivalry is more like towards the like giving them those really important, like what you were saying, like when you're married, you know, when your wife comes first and
You've made that transition.
you're giving her that priority,
yeah.
you know, which is not. I wouldn't agree with that necessarily being chivalry because I think chivalry
No,
is more like
that's what I was
good
gonna
manners
say.
towards
Yeah,
women.
yeah.
It's not.
You know?
It's not because like there's courtesy, and I think that a lot of people, and that's why it's important to differentiate these words as terms because you're going to look at that and be like, I'm going to be courteous to this human being, regardless if they're a female or a male. I'm going to be courteous and be respectful. This is something that God asks us to do as a part of our character. We're going to do this, but chivalry is like. When we hear that term, like, you know, the gallantry, chivalry, we start to see like this, you know, getting on one knee thing. You know, like that's what we do when we propose. We're always trying to, you know, circumnavigate problems for the girl by putting ourselves in front of them before she'll have to encounter them, right? And so it's like, is that being courteous or is that being chivalrous? So you'll have to ask yourself that question when you're like, yeah, I'm being courteous. And if she's expecting more, if you're looking at a guy who's overly chivalrous, you might say, like, we're talking about the red flag of some guy who's just giving too
Like,
much,
lifts
too
her
soon.
up every step. She's
Right.
like, "Oh, got you, baby."
It's like,
Put her
Or
down.
it's just like an
You know?
unequal exchange. Like, say if you're dating a girl who's it's distance, and literally every single time you're driving, 2 hours, you're paying for dinner, and like it's never reciprocated in any sort of way. She's not
Right.
driving to see you. She's like you're just putting in all the effort,
That's
and
not
she's just
cool.
showing up.
Right.
yeah, see, again, it's a red flag
That's
from the
not
girl's
cool.
side. That's going to be rough on them.
Yeah,
It's gonna
well,
take-
because
it's gonna
partly
take
like,
them
as
being
a guy,
reflective.
it's showing like you
So-
don't respect yourself and understand your
let's
value.
talk about the
Oh,
reasons
yeah, for
why,
sure.
like for a red flag for them, right? So like I think what they need to hear for girls, because it's a weird red flag in terms of them trying to interpret it the right thing, is what does it equal down the road? If some guys like that, what kind of a husband will you get if that's in turn your choice? So I think when I think of that kind of a dude becoming a husband, I see him not treating her
Becoming
as
a-
a full-blown person.
Becoming a doormat.
Right. Not only becoming a doormat, because that's something, but I know that a lot of people want to be respected, especially women and men both, as being able to have capacities to do things and be things in the world. And, like if you're sort of being babied or coddled.
Talk about the feminist
At some
movement, dude.
point-
Women want to be, they want to be them. They don't want to be coddled, bro. They want to be themselves.
In many ways,
equal
yes.
with a man.
Yeah, but don't you see, like, if you were in those shoes, that would get old after a while? People call it clingy or whatever else. But mainly, it's not being respected as a full functioning human being down the road. Like, I'm not going to
There's a noise outside, honey. I went out last time. It's your turn.
turn.
Here's the 19. Go out there.
Yeah, right.
I don't think so. It's gonna be a man's job.
So it's like down the road. In the beginning, it looks nice. It's like eating a bunch of candy, and then you feel nauseous at the end of it because you're like, that really wasn't
That's true.
healthy.
For some guys, you got to realize, dude, you might feel like you're doing it right now and all those, your Twitter pated, but like, think about, can you hold that game long term? Like, can you?
No one can, dude. Let's be
Well,
honest. The amount of drugs you're on in the beginning is going to make you do weird things you've never done in your whole life. Period. You're
I'm
gonna
not, I'm not
you're
really a
gonna be-
fan of how I act when I'm like that.
No one is.
It's not like,
No.
who are you, bro? Like, what happened?
It's so brutal.
It's so grass.
You just feel like you're basically a little Marie Antoinette, and at the top you just got a bunch of drugs and chemicals just like working you, man.
Yeah,
So
like,
it
even
takes-
if you're taking cold baths in the morning and your brother's bitch slapping you, it's still tough.
Dude,
to
even
stay
if
like
you were doing
cognizant.
even if you had Jocko in your brain implanted as a drill sergeant, you would still struggle, man. So,
That's what I'm saying.
but I mean, that's what I'm trying to tell the young ladies is like some of these red flags, they look good on the surface.
Y'all understand where they're coming
What do
from.
you
and
get?
it's a short term, yeah. And I think the other part of it is long term. If let's say they brush off a bunch of stuff that should be high priority and just make you the focus, and like that's going to be a detriment long term. Like the stuff that you were as a girl were attracted to in him. Let's just say his ambition and motivation and drive for the things he's working on, his mission in life.
Oh yeah.
And he puts that stuff to the side now because you're there. Like that's not a good long term.
You're losing
plan.
a piece
No.
of him.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, he's losing a piece.
That's why
of
you
himself.
liked him in the beginning. So don't try to take away all those things and then expect him to be the same person you fell in love with.
That's what I think. That's
That's
what
a good point.
I read that in a book once. A lot of girls they were attracted to this guy because of what we just said, but they want his time. So they
All
try
of it.
They try to change him.
Yep.
And then they do win. They tame the lion, and then they
They're
lose
bored.
respect. And
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
lose respect and get bored.
Yep.
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 And
And
so-
that takes
They
a
wanna
wise.
learn.
I mean, you're talking about a unicorn
That
to be
gets
able
into
to see
marriage,
that
too. That gets into-
initially and be like, I respect this in my man, and I want to cultivate it,
Yeah.
not watch it die. I heard many dudes, wise dudes, and I've heard that many times, kind of exactly underscoring what you said is that women are jealous of your time. You know, so it's not like it's a person. It could be an activity. It could be anything.
They
bro.
want
If
your
it's soaking
attention,
it up,
bro. Most women do.
They do.
That's what
you
they
know,
want.
And that's the sign that you love them. So that's why I'm again reiterating. This is a tough one for ladies, guys,
Yeah.
but it's also an important one because if you want
Well,
your
it goes
dude
into
to flourish,
balance and sort of like character and like what you desire out of a person and all the different things that come into a long-term relationship and how they end up becoming more like you said at the beginning, like, you know, your wife comes first, but then you have friends, then you have hobbies, and you have all these other stuff. You
It's
know,
gonna be
if-
a horrible
if
analogy.
she comes first, a lot of times people are like, well, all that stuff doesn't matter. And I never see Mike anymore on the weekends to watch Lord of the Rings. And it's like, screw that, dude. Like, you know, you need to have balance. You need to have this. And if you're going to continue to be the person that you fell in love with, your wife should respect that. But she also does come number one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if,
I'm gonna bring up a bad analogy right now,
I was
gonna
going to do
suck.
one.
but like if you buy a race car and you don't race, you just sit there looking at it in the garage, it's gonna rot. It's going to fall apart. You buy a beautiful guitar and you don't play it because you're too afraid to get a scratch on it. You're never going to hear the way that guitar plays. So the same thing goes for people. You want to enjoy them, use them, cultivate them for who they're meant to be. And being in a partnership means that synergy of knowing how to encourage one another to be that individualness of, because like you think of a relationship and it's like, yeah, it's two pieces, two parts. But the individual things that brought them together are also essential to keeping them together. You know,
That's
so
right.
you got to use them. You got to polish that Corvette. You got to keep it clean, but you also should go out there and knock the carbon out on I-75 without getting pulled over by the cops, obviously. Go to the
That's right.
track, do it smart, push it to the limit sometimes so that you can have them grow, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the second one. Here we go, guys. This one we did with girls, lack of quality friends, which usually isn't such a hard thing for guys, but quality might be a hard thing for guys.
Yeah, I think so. I think you
that's
can have a
hard.
lot of shallow friends too as guys.
Right.
Where it's just like, this is my buddy I go with on Friday nights to get drinks and watch the game, and then you don't really
Right.
have like a shallow friendship.
Mhm.
Or I mean, you have a shallow friendship, and I think that's one of the biggest thing lacking for men today are those quality deep friendships.
100% agree.
I think what's the
Yeah,
stats
oh,
like
yeah.
25% of men today don't have like one close friend.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's so true. And I think like a big part of this
It's a big
is
deal.
like because guys lack the ability to be, or they, let me rephrase that. Society or our culture has made being intimate with another man like, or vulnerable with another guy, like your friend, like talking about certain problems or even giving him hugs, dude. Like I've seen like giving a guy a hug. He's like, yeah, dude, no homo, bro. I'm like, dude, why would you even say that? Disgusting, dude.
It's like your head's already there. We're just like, it's an
why do we have to
embrace.
go that far? Like we're just giving a hug, dude. Like,
Yeah, like,
geez, Louise.
Say that to your mom.
Come from an Italian family, be kissing each other on the lips. But you know what? It's one of those things where you can see like guys are super guarded with that intimacy, and it stunts their growth. It stunts their communication. It stunts their ability to find out what's going on here and in here, and to be able to use that when they're talking to a woman, to be able to communicate with them.
Speaking subjectively from that, I know this is true. When you make friends when you're younger as a guy, and this probably is true for girls too, like you can transcend that weirdness, you know, of being, no homo or whatever else, and knowing what to share and not what to share because you're a kid. You know, you're just like, this is what we're going through, and you have this really beautiful innocence that helps to galvanize that bond. I had trouble making friends later in life because of trust. I don't know who they are. I don't know how to trust. Like all of a sudden, this whole world of humanity opens up to you, and you're like, people honestly are manipulative, lying, just enterprising human
playing
beings.
games.
Yeah, dude. And then you can see it just makes you sort of really hold off and be sort of patient with what goes on.
Oh, yeah.
And I can see how relationships for men will stay at that starting point where it's like, yeah, this is easy. We're going to go drink and play pool, and we're going to talk about, whatever we watched on YouTube. It's not going to be something serious. Like when you're young, you're sharing like serious stuff. You just do instinctually. So like making friends is hard. It's seriously hard. And like, I honestly think it's a blessing, like from God. When like we were praying for this group for years, we met Phil. These things just came out. They grew out. It was like an incredible thing. I couldn't seek it out for myself. I couldn't make it happen myself. And I tried several times.
That's so often with all kinds of relationships too. It's
Yeah.
even like women. Like I've heard that so many times. Even like my mom. Like I just got out of a breakup. It's just like that comes when you don't look for it. I've heard that so many times.
Oh, dude, it's
like,
true though,
you
because
can try looking. And
I was
put all
actually
that
listening.
Force and
I was listening to Ian McGilchrist. I don't know
work
how,
against you.
How much correlation there is here, but he was talking about a dude. Some of these guys who work in the racehorse business, and what they do is they'll talk to their bookie. Right, so they go and they're watching these horses come through, and they get like 30 seconds to see a horse.
Yep.
And boom, they have this idea of the horse's abilities, and they send.
Well,
that
they
to the
call
bookie.
horses. They say this one's going to win, this one's going to lose.
That's what. Well, the odds, right?
Yeah.
And so they did an experiment where they asked
It
the
blew
dude.
my mind that there's people that actually have a job to do that. It's
They're
crazy.
seriously highly paid
It's
too.
crazy. Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. There's so many jobs in the world like this. This is another point. But anyway, it blew my mind too, Joe. So you're listening to the same thing.
Oh yeah.
So what ends up happening is they do this experiment. They're like, okay, dude, you're going to think about this. And then they rated him. So like he's shooting from the gut or shooting from the hip versus trying to be like analytical. And when he was analytical, horrible scores. Worst scores ever.
Yeah, he had to see it in the first 30 seconds.
And it had to
It
be
was like
something
it was an instinctual.
They credited Ian McGilchrist as a left brain, right brain scientist. He's talking right brain here. And so I'm looking at it from kids versus analytical adults. And I know what inhibited a lot of my relationships growing up, or being learning how to find relationships, being a dude that's like a man, like an established, mature adult. I would mitigate and stop and be super analytical, and so that would sort of in
That's
many ways
you got shark bit before.
Absolutely, dude. But I'm also saying that there is something about trusting in God when you do have the right people that will allow things to flourish. Now that's just a sub point.
Talking about
because
being
when
jaded.
you're kids, because when you're kids, you just do that instinctually, kind of like what Ian says. Like when you're in class, why do you pick the kid that's sitting on the other part of the room to talk to? You don't really know. You just know that you guys are going to get along a little better than the dude sitting next to you. So there is something built into us that I think that we need to pay attention to when making friends, because it's something that will allow us to get those bonds. And I do know that it's hard for men to make. I was so hard for me. I don't think, besides Mike and like Phil and a few of the other guys in the ID, that's the first time I've made a reasonable relationship where there's been some accountability since I was like 22.
I know.
That's crazy.
It's like, yeah.
That's crazy
It
to
is,
think
yeah.
about.
So
and imagine, does it get harder when you get older?
Of course it
probably.
does.
Because then they're going to have to get to know more about you, and just the process is what it is.
Some people you connect with, some people you don't. And when you do find that connection, it's a gift. And it's important if you're dating somebody, ladies, like if your guy has just those shallow friends, like the weekenders or the bars or the gamers, whatever, like there might be some issues there in the future with your communication with this dude, because he's probably not he's probably doesn't have he lacks that skill set within his own kind. So he's probably going to lack that with you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have the quality friends like we have, like you got guys holding him accountable, guys that are pushing him, like you got friends that are like helping him be a better person.
Right.
They have that. They have the domain of uncomfortability in the relationship.
Yeah, they're not
It's not
codependent,
just-
toxic relationships where it's like you can tell this guy's dragging him down. That's a red flag. You don't want that. That's not a good thing.
Yeah.
You can chop that sucker with the Mulvaney tomahawk right
Yeah.
there. Bam. See you later.
Exactly. So I'd say down the line, why it's a red flag is you're not going to be able to you can't count on him having practice with sharing things. I think that we practice with those relationships that are same sex with sharing vital, vulnerable
Well, I think
stuff.
we need it, because that's one thing the red pill community does right. Is like they say your tribe of good close male friends are like your support system.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah.
And like I saw a post on one of the pages today. It was like it said therapy ? And the response was, no, I got guy friends.
I have bros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm
this
thinking like, yeah,
eliminated my therapy.
that is so true. And I think a lot of men lack that.
Mhm.
So,
And I would say one thing too, just to kind of, wipe aside these cliches of friendship so that people know what we're talking about. These friendships are not just having a good time. These guys are working together. They're sharing things. The communication and conversation content is different than just like going to the bar on Friday with Bill and Jeff. It's them trying to do stuff and accomplish things. You see within that relationship that there is something vital about that friendship too, almost on the level of sharing consciousness. Like it's kind of like that is your therapy. When you go to a therapist, you're asking them to weigh in on your perception of the world, right?
Your true thoughts.
Yeah.
Your honest, true thoughts.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be dead honest with them.
Yep.
Which is what makes it work.
Yeah, it's rare to find good friends outside of the faith too. I mean, they do exist, but like having that backbone of like the things that Paul describes and being accountable and the way we form and handle church, we take it for granted so much because it's something we rely on. We really believe it. But the rest of the world,
because they're
like,
good dudes.
Yeah, exactly.
You know
It's
what I
the
mean?
rest of the world. It's like, oh, so and so said
They
something.
don't got the game. They don't got all that other stuff. It's like they actually love you and
Think
care
about
about
how
you.
many good relationships or
Truly.
potential for good relationships just crash and burn because somebody's not able to deal with some constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Like that happens all the time. It's sad.
all the time.
Right?
And I would take it one step further too. Is like if they have a good relationship with their mother, that's also a good sign. And their dad as well. Especially for guys, like, you know what I mean? If their mom, and if he can, like, give his mother a hug or, like, you can see, like, that affection happen there, that kind of caretaking, that love, and that preciousness. He's like, that's my mom.
Yeah.
That's a good sign.
Yep. Because he values that woman.
He does.
Yeah.
So the next red flag here, no particular order. Here we go. Inability to see his own flaws, speaks always about himself and what he is doing excessively. Major taco creamer on our hands here.
Yeah, it's kind of 2 in 1 there,
Used
but
car salesman, dude.
Those players, they just know how to like grease
you know
you
what's so
up. You're like,
attractive about
oh
'em?
man, I feel so good when I'm around them.
Yeah, that's right. They make you feel good because
Yeah.
they're going to make you the taco that they're creaming. And
Or they
eventually-
make
that feels
themselves
great.
look really good, and then you're like, man, I want to just be with this guy because he's doing so well.
I feel like it's only a matter of time before I'm going to be that used car that he's trying to sell. It's going to sound awesome, and I'm going to feel awesome. You know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's what makes it so attractive.
It does.
But then, what's the red flag? Why is this a red flag?
Why is it a red flag? Because usually those things are learned, and it's a manipulation, and you can tell there's a lot of insincerity that goes along with that because those people. Generally, you want a well-balanced, a little bit of both. You want some compliments, but you also want like some sturdy, real, like, you know, accountability there at the same time. So if there's not, and you also want like a pragmatic approach to the future. Like if they're talking about dreams and stuff that they're going to do, and that's always about what they're going to do, and then you start to realize like, what are they actually
They're
doing
not actually doing
now?
it.
Yeah.
Okay, like,
Yep.
okay, that's one of those personalities that you're probably going to have to encounter that's not going to have any actual progress in their life.
They're not presenters. They're pissers.
Right. So
or
there's
some of them that do have stuff going on, then they just lead with it. Like they just, I
Yeah.
got money. I'm going to lead with my money, and
True.
like that's how I'm going
Which
to
is
impress.
sad
this-
for them because, like, if I was in that position, which I don't have a bunch
it's
of money,
insecurity.
but I will tell you this: like, I always respected the men in the world who had a lot of money who didn't have to flaunt it because there was something in the background of their mind that said, "I want these relationships to be based off of something more than that." Because that
how
becomes a
about
very
me,
shallow
like
thing.
who I am. If I
Yeah.
got $1 million and like all this stuff, I'd be thinking all these girls are going to want that, even if I was the most handsome guy in the
Still
world.
doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, like, okay, so that was one of my issues too when I looked at the sort of what those guys may be lacking is like saying, yeah, you're not really being
That's just
desired
an
for who you
insecurity
are.
there. It's like they're just fishing with the best bait they think they're going to get any woman, but they're not looking for a woman that fits them.
That's right.
Great. You know, it's just like, it's just the mass,
Yeah.
you know, sane fisherman term. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They're using that. So.
Well, I would say on that point, when I look at these types of individuals, because I've had a few in my life, and I grew up and got burned by them, which sucked. You know, and you don't have to be a male or a female to know what it feels like to be burned by somebody who's, you know, a con artist. And so
Con
there's
artists.
different levels of conning that goes on. And when you think about what a con artist is, those people are trying to make you do something that you don't. That's probably not the best for you. That's the issue right there.
No, because that's why
So-
they have to do what they do. They put up the smoke screen, they put up the red herring, and then all of a sudden you're like, what's happening here?
Right. And so I'll describe to you why this is a red flag, why I see it as it. So you're living in a world. This world you know well because you've been there for a while. Somebody comes into your life and they start pitching to you a different world. This world seems better on the surface. It seems something that's more attractive, and you want to go to that world. You want to migrate to that world. So you do. And then as time comes up, what they have sold you as guarantees, because nothing sounds good unless it's a guarantee. On the future, they've taken liberties with the future saying X, Y, and Z will happen if you do A, B, and C. What's going to happen is that may fall like a house of cards, and then you're going to have to migrate, have an exodus out of that world. That's why it hurts people, because you're telling them stuff that's going to happen in the future, and it may not happen, but you're acting like it's an absolute, and you're making it sound really great, and then all of a sudden people are there, and they get hurt. So you need to recognize that in
It's
yourself.
not good practice for your even self. Like, yeah, Andrew Huberman talks about this, but like, if you talk about doing stuff and like before you're done doing it, you often get the dopamine hit as if you had already accomplished this shit. And it's like, it's not a good idea to do that. Just get your shit done and let the progress and let the actualization of your goals be enough. You don't have to talk about it to everybody. But specifically in dating, it's the taco creaming, it's the overlook at me, it's leading with your money. These are all things that really are going to show this person's he's pretty insecure. He doesn't know who he is. He knows what people want. He's very manipulative. And this is generally going to be someone who's unstable.
Yeah,
you know,
and
in a
I
relationship.
want to continue on that point though, like, because sometimes people are different. Some people have issues talking about themselves. I know that I kind of did for a long time because I was used to being a listener. My parents were very much the talkers, and I was used to and I had to like integrate in myself after like listening to Jordan Peterson's assert. You know, you have things that you have to say. It may not come out good. You have to practice this stuff, right? So if you're in a relationship with somebody like that, you need to assert yourself because it might not always be their problem. Maybe you're not doing your best to express your side of what's going on and your ideas and whatever's floating around in your head, doing that. Because if you do try and you do start doing that, you're not good at it with somebody who's already a great taco creamer. Let's just use that term for these people.
I've never heard that term before.
To put extra cream on that taco. Just way too much cream before you know it. You're just like, this is too much. Too much.
cream taco.
But so what happens is, are they listening? You know, are they listening once you begin? Because like we have a sensitivity among men, especially in the Bible study, when some guy's trying to speak his mind for the first time, it's clunky or it's not going along well. We have patience with that. It's like this guy's practicing and we are his brothers here allowing this to actually happen so he can be a better dude. But for the women and the men, it's different, right? So if your dude's always talking about what he's doing, you try to interject about some of your dreams, and then he starts to get sleepy or lose eye contact, and he's on his phone because you're not hitting him with that quick, fast-paced stuff of interest, then that dude's not going to be sensitive enough to listen to you in your beginning states. He's not having that kind of a relationship with you in the beginning. I would say that's a big red flag. Like if somebody can't sit there and listen to you about the things you're most passionate about and is quickly trying to take the like it's time to talk about me again, I'd say just leave that behind, man.
Yep.
Shut the
away
front
from
door.
That. Yeah. Shut the front door, man.
How about the
Sayonara.
flaw part of it, that comment? Inability to see his own flaws.
Yeah. Well, you want to do?
I think they end up on the list because a couple girls brought it up. So I've heard that complaint under girls, especially dealing with like Christian men, that they kind of think they're like perfect. And they're not.
That surprised me. When
No,
you brought
you know what this says a lot.
When he framed it out with like Christian dudes.
Yeah.
That did surprise me.
I can't explain it like that. We'd have to have them on next time to like fully explain it. But
Yeah.
it's something that they have caught on to and see out of, and that's probably something that I could throw at myself as a red flag potentially, and maybe some of us can.
Tomahawk. This is how we do it. We're humble around here.
I got an idea on this though, and this might not just apply just to Christian guys, but just to like quote high value or confident men. It's like, so the women, they're attracted to these confident guys, right? And these confident guys always have the answer. They're always the guys who are like, I'm they got the destination. You know, they're attractive because they know what they're doing in life, right? So those guys oftentimes, when you come at them, or when they're or like come at them with like, oh, well, this might be a flaw, or this might be something that's going wrong. If they are truly, you know, mature and they're used to actually getting, they would actually take that, like in Proverbs, a wise man accepts rebuke, right? Well, if they don't, then that's a quick sign right there. You're gonna know they're not mature. They don't know how to take a rebuke. This is not a good thing, because you have to be able to look at your own flaws and take assessment. Even if someone's trying to get at you, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it might not even be true.
Up.
You still have to be able to meet that with some poise, you know what I mean? Be like, yeah, it's, you know, it's all right, because in life you're going to get attacked all the time by people that are telling you the truth,
like
and by
how we
people
talked
that are just
about
trying to tear you
with
down.
Like the tone, it's like, yeah, I know that you're saying these words to me, and then some people get so wrapped up with the tone they just forget all the words. Like, we as mature men have tried to exercise that. Like, I know I do. When somebody's worked up or I'm being attacked, try and listen to the words rather than the tone.
Right.
You know, so I can accept that rebuke properly and not just like throw the ball in their corner and be like, okay, your tone's off. And then all of a sudden what they're saying is gone. And it's like, that was like a kind of shisty move on my part.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Well, you're threatened, and then you obviously have that like type of like, I have just been insulted.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you haven't. You know, but I think if they can take a like an admonishment, or that you can pick their flaws out and do that with them, it's like, number one, that probably goes back to our previous red flags. They probably have good friends around them because they're used to it.
That's
you know, they're used to taking that sort of that normal growth of like, hey,
we all got problems.
Everyone
Everybody's got
does.
something to work on.
But see, like the girls that are attracted to like a lot of those like alpha type guys, a lot of those guys, that's just straight up bravado. You know what I mean?
Well, I will say, like, a lot of times you're attracted to what you're interested in. Sometimes you want to have common stuff. So, like, 9 times out of 10, the girl who's unable to find a guy who's able to receive that admonishment probably isn't either herself, because he's attracted to that. Because, I mean, like, if you can't, it depends on what you're talking about, too. Like, if you get into a situation with somebody and you tell them what you think is on your mind and you know it's going to help them, and you really try and present it with good timing because you care about them, and they see that in you and they still just walk all over you, and, you know, in a few days go past and they're not like, because I've had experiences where I've done that.
Take some
with
time.
people, and they've been like, yo, I'm sorry. What you were saying was right, you know, and I needed to hear that. I'm like, thank you. You know, we can move on from there. Like, I understand that was some sensitive stuff we had to work through. We were, you know, was walking on some coals together. But if you're a girl and you're trying to talk to a dude and you're talking about flaws on the second date, like, I'd take a minute to think about that. You know, like,
it's true.
I'd be like, you know, like, get to know him a little more. You don't know everything about this dude. Maybe take a second to be like, this is who you are. Who are you? You know, you know, be sensitive about.
So
that.
it is time related. Some of these things, like the flaws that they're picking out, is time related.
Yeah, I'd say.
Unless you go to their truck and it's like a mess, and you're like, whoa,
bunch of Natty Light cans in the back. You're like, oh man, you got a problem with drinking, don't you?
Or
bro?
it kind of goes in like
driving and
I don't know if
drinking.
this is one of ours, but I think it is, guys. It could lead us into the next one, but it's like bad hygiene.
Yeah, being super messy. And...
Right.
So if you're gonna go up to the guy and be like,
that's
yo,
it.
you need to brush your teeth.
Yeah, let's get into
Those
that.
things are grimy. I'd be like, and he's like, no, they're not. I'd be like, you blind.
I'd be like, here's a
blind?
mirror, bro.
Yeah, I'd be
That's
like,
some grime up in your grill.
I don't think you'd have to tell him that though. I think as the girl, like if his teeth are a disaster,
She'd probably be out.
Just
like,
go. Don't have to tell him.
Disgusting.
I mean, I'd be like, yo, I was on a
It's like-
camping trip, man, and I just came here. It was I lost my toothbrush. Some like, you know, some turtle came. And
But to
stole
kind of
it.
wrap that thing up in the end, I think, well, girls they get attracted to a certain type of guy, whether it's that bad boy or that super, you know, confident alpha, whatever they want to terminology you want to use for it. And the idea behind it is it's imbalanced. These guys are imbalanced within their character. Yes, it's super attractive, usually because we all want to see that and be around that. But the idea is
That's
they're
Hollywood, dude.
imbalanced. Yes, they're imbalanced and they're insincere within who their character is, because you want to see a little bit of both. You want to see a little bit of both within it. And if things are going way too well in the beginning, then there's an issue there. You should be able to spar. You should be able to have some of these things happen.
I want
soon.
to point out a word you brought up, which is a really important word to understand and take your time with evaluating another person. That's confidence. Okay, if you're confident about yourself, then you're going to be confident in your ability to receive rebuke, admonishment, and do something with that. So you see value in receiving things from people that are around you and then adding and building your character, right?
That's right.
That's real confidence. That is real confidence. That's a man who knows that he's building his character, and the tools he uses to build it are the people around him.
And
right?
he's not threatened by it. He's not insulted by it.
No, he's encouraged by it. And this
Right.
is the ideal situation. Sometimes it takes a couple days, but he ends up using it. So the Hollywood version of confidence we see so much is like this sociopath, right? They sort of glorify sociopaths. And why? Because they are successful in life a lot of times. But that's not true confidence. That's insecurity.
And moreover,
When
would
you
you want to
see-
be married to one of those people?
No.
Probably not.
Yeah. Just
No.
like Jordan
Probably
Peterson
no.
brings up Muay Thais on the beach. It's like, for a day or two. And then you're like, this is boring. I don't want any more of these drinks. Let's get off this beach. I'm sunburned. It's just time to do something else.
Oh, it goes back
Right.
to the attention, women wanting attention. Like, how much time are you going to be able to spend with one of these guys that are doing all this other stuff?
But let's talk about
Not
fake
much.
confidence for a second. We condensed it to sociopath, but a lot of the time it's looking and needing the spotlight in order to survive and being threatened whenever that's taken from them in any way, shape, or form. If you see somebody and they can't tolerate somebody getting a good compliment or celebrating with them because
Gross.
they've done something good because they are not in the walk
Or
away.
they have to say, well, you know what happened to me?
right.
Yeah.
You know? Oh,
They got to one up the story every time.
Yeah.
It's
ugh.
like, and it can be in bad things too, right? It's like this guy I know broke his ankle, and then all of a sudden this dude's telling
I
about how he
broke my
broke his
ankle.
femur. You're just
Yeah.
like, what the heck, bro?
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with
Just-
the conversation.
Or like someone's got some new car and then they're like, well, I have another car. It's like,
You're just
dude,
like, what?
just listen to the guy talk about he's excited. It's like,
Yeah, it's not about you. And that's where I was saying this is insecurity, right? Because if you're secure about yourself and you have real confidence, one of the things that makes you most happy when you have real confidence is seeing somebody else succeed. Seeing, especially people that
You care
because
about.
you know how hard it is to get better in life.
Yeah.
And when somebody can do that, the world has all of a sudden become a better place.
Yeah, you
And
share
if
in
you
their
really
successes,
care about
bro.
the world, you're going to change yourself and you're going to want others to change too. That's how you change the world, one person at a time. And that's what true confidence is. It's celebrating in the fact the world just became a better place because so-and-so had some kind of growth moment. And it's
That's
not
right.
about you, bro. It's not about what we think
It's
we
about
need.
us.
It's about what the world needs. Yeah,
Together.
but that's real confidence.
It's true.
And it's rare, but I
So
mean,
be on the lookout for that, ladies. It's
Should we
rare.
roll into
it's,
the
it's super
hygiene
rare.
messy one now?
Let's roll into the next one, fellers.
Dude, if your house is a
Ooh.
pigsty, get your act together, bros.
Pretty much, dude. Heavy video game use, time-wasted hobbies, bad hygiene, and messy.
Yeah.
It all pretty much goes into the same category there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right? So, like, if your house is a mess, it's probably your brain's a mess. You know what I mean? Unless you're like one of those crazy
and
artistic
ladies,
types.
I don't think it's going to change magically when you move in as his wife one day.
yeah, no.
I think you'll be dealing with that forever.
I mean, let's be
Right.
honest. Even if you're doing and I'm guilty of this. Like sometimes, like my wife will be like, "John, you're just putting your clothes on the floor," and I'll notice, be like, you know what? I'm gonna do good at this for a week, and like a week later, I'm like, all of a sudden, I see a couple socks. I'm like, dang it, dang it, I did it again.
I'm pretty much use my floor for my clothes.
Yep, and I'm like, this is an easy thing. It's a really easy thing, man. Just put it in there. Like it's not necessarily hygiene so much as it's like
What if-
thoughtfulness. Just freaking do it. Put it in there. But the hygiene thing, like I know for younger guys, dude, some of those, oh my God.
Well, how could you do this,
How do you-
guys? It's disgusting. Like,
dude.
seriously, like, come on, dude. Like, isn't it nice to live in like a clean surroundings? So like you look around, it's not a mess. You look at yourself in the mirror, you're like, I like how you look. At least you might not be pleased with everything, but you're doing your best to look your best, to present your best, to be surrounded by, cleanliness, which is next to godliness.
For sure.
Whether
Yeah.
it's your car, whether you have a nice car, a really nice car, or a piece of crap. You're taking care of it the best you can. I don't care if you live in like a Matchbox sardine can. If you got
Still nice.
if you're taking care of it, it's not dusty. You know what I mean? There's not a bunch of crap.
You can make
that
it nice.
to me is like that's a great sign, dude.
Yeah.
If you live in a penthouse, you got a brand new Mercedes, and it's all junked and crapped. Well, guess what, ladies? You're going to be that brand new Mercedes being junked and crapped, too.
No.
All right? So this just shows you the type of guy and his mentality and what he's kind of doing, the way he takes care of
And
himself.
it can be taught, I think, to a large degree for dudes. Like when I was a bachelor, I did my own laundry, folded it. I actually liked it. I put on a podcast, be like, you know what? I'm like, fine with this.
Good.
Cleaning dishes, like that honestly gives me anxiety. And like if I don't clean those things,
That's me.
it's like mom.
Wait for
unless
tomorrow morning.
unless I'm
Coming.
dying, tired. Like
Well,
mom's coming.
I think a
over.
lot of it comes from their childhood too. Like
For
my
Joe
mother,
and I were forced. Yeah.
yeah, my mother was crazy about cleanliness. So I think if they didn't grow up in that, they're gonna have a lot harder time like drilling those things in their head.
Yeah,
Dude.
we have a friend.
Yeah.
He's older. I love him to death, but he is all about that sort of like manly. Like I could be dirty. Men are dirty. Men don't have to like keep a clean house and like we just being a man. I'm like, no, dude. Like that's not being a man. That's just being gross.
I remember.
Like,
it's just being
be
gross.
You could be you could be a woman and it's still gross.
It's like,
dude.
let's get
Like,
real here. You just men are what? They're just gross, and that's okay. Like no. I remember when
I'm
we
taking
were
the man feminist movement
Yeah.
back. It's like we can clean, we can cook, we can
Look at the
fold,
Army.
We could do all this stuff ourselves,
I think-
guys. You
I
don't
think-
need a woman to do this.
You
for
know the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, any of these like self
They all
national
do that,
defense.
dude.
Yeah, they all teach that.
Yeah, nickel on the bed,
Yeah,
dude.
you better be clean, bro.
Yeah.
You got to be dealing with your gun. All this stuff has to be clean. I remember when I was a kid,
orderliness.
we went to go see our dad, Jack, and strained relationship. He's got all kinds of problems, lots of red flags. But
he is a living red
he's
flag.
like this huge banner of the collection. Anyway,
That's where I
we
learned.
were in the kitchen. We're cooking some food, and something spilled out of the pan. And like he goes and grabs a paper towel, and he just kind of bends down, and cleans it up, Then cleans a little more over here, and then you see something. Oh, I'll clean that too. Cleans it all up. And I remember as a kid, I had like a deep respect for him to see him get down on his knees and clean that little thing. Somebody had to clean it. Somebody's going to clean it at some point. It's like, you can clean it now, or you can clean it 2 days from now, or is this never going to get clean?
Clean it now.
Clean it
Yep.
now. Yeah. So I was like an 18-year-old dude. Joe and I both like watched that happen several times. It was one of our first times actually hanging out with him, like, living with him. We lived with him for like 3 weeks. He broke his hand, a big story. But anyway, I had a lot of respect for that. And I remember seeing that, and I was like, I want to be like that. When I see something dirty and gross, I want to clean it, try and be that guy to react to that mess, in an instant, so that it doesn't have to be a big Friday thing where
That's right,
you
because
clean up everything.
that mess could be a problem in your relationship. And it might be a small one, but those things can turn into big ones
Yeah.
if you don't clean them up. And especially if you have a bunch of little tiny messes that no one's cleaning up, that quickly turns into a pigsty.
Definitely.
So it's indicative of the way that he's going to approach the problems in the relationship. Does he take care of the little things, or is it just big things? So you put things off like that. This is important.
I had some friends that were throwaway clothes. Like they just wear them a couple times, suckers in the trash. It's sort of like a weird disrespect for material items. That kind of falls in the line with high, like respect for your body, your surroundings, the stuff you buy. Like how do you take care of that stuff? I think for most young men, hygiene is something that they might do well in some places and worse in others. Like they might brush their teeth and floss it, but then when you look at their, I don't know,
They stink.
they stink, or I don't know, they're just not going to the doctor. So simple stuff like that. That's another thing that manly men don't do. It's like, I don't need the doctor. I'll drop dead whenever I do. It's like, okay, great. What about your family? Just go to the doctor, bro. So that would be one of the other things I'd like piggyback on to
For
hygiene.
sure. Yeah.
Take care of your stuff.
Agreed.
Time wasting now.
Time wasting. Yeah, I think so. Well,
I think it's just hobbies and kind of nonsense.
that's
time
right.
wasting.
That's that
What
kind
kind
of
of hobbies are time wasting?
Well, I think it's not necessarily the hobby. It's like how much time do they spend? Like they can play video games, but is it like 10 hours on a Saturday? That's how I'd view like the problems, things that need to watch out for as
Like
far
a
as
healthy
red flags.
diet for it.
Yeah,
What is a healthy diet for video games?
I don't even know. I
It's a
think it
tough one.
depends on what the other parts of your life are going. If you got like no time and you're choosing 2 hours of video games
It's like
over other
self-destruct.
things,
Yeah.
but if you have a little extra time, maybe because your schedule's freer and they're doing it, I wouldn't. So it's probably context based.
Mm-hmm.
right.
But I think like
What are some
video
other things?
games get thrown under the bus all the time, which I don't think is fair. Like I grew up playing them,
Right.
but because like let's say women will get mad at, but they'll sit and watch some stupid Netflix show for
The
2
Bachelor.
hours every. Yeah, they'll watch The Bachelor 2 hours a night every night.
No,
and then
that's
they're
a
mad
good
at they're mad
point.
at their boyfriend for playing video games for 2 hours,
And it's
like,
different if you're watching it together. Like,
Yeah.
I was always kind of strained to be like, oh, is this really an activity that we could call a co-op activity? Like, we're watching a movie together, honey.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, it can be, because like we talk about what we think's gonna happen. We're talkers, so
Yeah.
like I'll pause the movie and
Yeah.
we'll be like talking about it a little bit.
That's
You know,
cool.
like, it's not just like my dad was like, silence. We just missed that part. How dare you speak during a movie?
That's what
And I'm like-
subtitles are for.
And I'm like, Dad, nah, dude. Movies can be interactive if you treat them right. You don't want to like piss Dad off, otherwise it's gonna suck anyway. But if you're just watching a movie by yourself or a show by yourself, and your dude's in his room playing his video games, like, what makes that any better?
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say it's worse watching reality TV. Like a
Because at least you
game
get some hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, it stimulates your. It's legitimately good for your brain.
It
a
is.
lot.
Yeah.
I saw some studies
Problem
about-
solving.
Yeah, you know, what I mean, it's not like you're playing. Like the video games nowadays are pretty intense. You know.
Yeah.
You know, I
pretty
would
intense.
say this isn't on the list, but I think it's kind of important too. It's like this just to me, you know, I think it's important that like
Lay it on me.
dudes know how to use like just basic hand tools.
Dude, that's a great
You know what I'm saying?
one.
Like basic screwdriver, hammer knowledge, like knows the positive and the negative ends of like a battery.
Yeah,
You know,
word.
might know how to
I almost-
jumpstart a car. You know what I mean? Like just basic shit like that.
yeah.
You know, replace a freaking light bulb.
There's no
You know what I
excuse
mean?
for not having a dad who
I
taught
think
you
it's
too. You
I
got
think it's
YouTube.
so important, dude.
Easy.
It's true. Like you could just pop a YouTube video
Dude.
up, dude, and learn like a couple things. Like, you know, but I've seen so many guys nowadays that don't know anything about tools, don't know anything about like the way things work. And it's like, hey, dude, like you should at least know that for your own good. Like, God forbid you
Dude,
break
if you
down on the
can't
side of the
jumpstart a
road. You
car,
can't
bro,
change
you
the
just-
tire on your car. You don't know what a tire iron is. You don't know what lug nuts are. Like, you don't know
At least
basic
know how to
stuff.
figure answers out.
Yeah.
You don't know how to
Like-
open up YouTube and scroll through the video.
He's
Yeah,
like
follow
allergic to
directions.
just figuring it
the
out.
answers
Yeah.
are on YouTube.
Yeah, just check it out. That was
That's a really good
small one there.
I like that one though.
But I feel like there's a lot of guys because
I like that.
kind of reminded me of like hobbies. Like, what kind of hobbies do you have? Like, I didn't have a problem with video games because we couldn't afford the systems, and like the last video game we played was Aladdin, and I love that thing. Or no, actually it was N64. It was like Tony Hawk or
no,
something.
we like
Spiral.
to play. The last
There's a
thing
couple
we were
of 'em.
into was Praetorians. It's
Yeah,
like
that's
a
right. That was a computer
game.
That was like a
Yeah.
strategy thing. But
Yeah, it was
anyways,
fun.
this is so far from the point. The point is that like I think some hobbies, they actually depends on the video game. Some of them will build you up and like they'll make you brainier, and they're actually way better for that. So that's not exactly true. But some other hobbies, like, you know, like if you're a gearhead dude, or like, you know, like you're into fitness, for instance, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
so
Like
a lot of people
some of
say
these
that's
other
a hobby.
quote hobbies, like some people would say I'm a hobbyist bodybuilder. I don't compete,
Mhm.
don't do anything like that. But it's a good hobby. It kind of like has ulterior benefits, and I guess like it's nice to see people that have hobbies that have ulterior benefits besides just the pleasure of doing what they're doing.
I feel
You
like
know
the
what I mean?
worst thing that doesn't get called a hobby is it's like Mike was saying, like when you sink in crazy amounts of time watching garbage material. And that can happen on YouTube or
TikTok.
Instagram or
God
TikTok.
I don't
Any
have
one
that.
of these things where you notice you're kind of tuning out and you're just wasting time.
You
know,
find
like you
yourself
could be
on
reading
some
a book.
fringe topic on YouTube, and
you're
you're
like,
like,
"Why
"Why
did
did
I
I
get
get
here?"
here?
Yeah.
What happened?"
Yeah. But I'd say, like, what are some bad hobby or, you know, I guess what
I
the
think
question
it's really
is, like,
time is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
how much time are you spending on them? Because you can like do like if you're at the gym, literally 4 hours a day, like it's probably a misuse of time.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
little bit much.
Uh,
And you're probably
I mean, if you-
overtraining,
if
and
you
you need a
gotta-
break, dude.
yeah, if you or
Snap City.
if your hobby's golf and you're like literally golfing every day, well, guess what? 9 holes is like a 2-hour ordeal, literally every single day. He's also dumping tons of money into that every single day, like.
Yep, not good.
So some of those things, it's just something to be aware
and
of.
I want to make a
My
caveat
hobby is
here.
a fifth of bourbon every night,
Oh
7
my
p.m.
Gosh, that's not that's suicide.
That's an
Yeah.
addiction.
But
Yeah.
you know, like when somebody, because Joe and I, we play music, right? And it's like a hobby, but it's also like an aspiring career. I'd love to make it my career. So some people have hobbies where they're also trying to integrate it into their lives as a career. And I know in relationships, it can get kind of like, I'm lucky I have a wife that supports it a lot, you know, and I'm not like in a situation where me and the guitar are like having an affair with my mom. You know? Like it's viewed that way, you know, like that would suck.
That would
But sometimes a woman or a dude in a relationship might have something they're really trying to get out and do besides their day job, which you could classify as a hobby. But in many, like this podcast, maybe if we were in a relationship, a woman might be like, oh, you're not doing it. Yeah, and there's no ad revenue. What are you doing? You're just sitting there talking to your dudes. What makes you so special? Whatever. You could hear it, right? You could see where somebody would do that, right? So it's like, have respect for them doing something that's soaking up their time, that requires time, that for believing in themselves.
Okay, so I'll go
I'd like to say that that's like borderline hobby career.
Well, it's kind of cool when they do
good.
something that's more original than just going out to the bar with the boys to go see the game
or playing golf.
You know what I mean? It's
like
I like to see more of those more like identifiable hobbies within their character. Personally, just some of those other things. Yeah. So that's kind of it. But we have a couple other ancillary, however you say that.
Auxiliary? I don't even know.
No, we have
ancillary.
We have the top one, the Christian one.
Oh yes,
because we're almost an hour in. It looks like it.
Okay, I just want to add one more line. I think it's the next one, if that's okay. Says all the things you want to hear off the bat, but doesn't spar with you. And I think spar with you. I think really, it's like when you first meet somebody and you want to make a good impression. A lot of people just like agree with the other people. They try to soften all the edges, but I think it's really
what is that? It's like good vibes.
It's just always good vibes, bro.
It's like good vibes. Just keep
those good vibes. Oh, I feel some negativity from you. You need to. It's not working, dude. So like, I think it's a great thing when like, what are you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say I've seen multiple times many times on dating profiles of girls literally saying, "I want a man who can call me on my BS." And so I think that goes into that.
That's
like
the sparring.
Like you have to be able to stand by the things you believe in with somebody that you're very interested in a respectful manner, and be able to talk about some of those disagreeable topics.
Yeah,
from the get-go.
That's probably one of your highest, and people really got to embed this. That's one of the most important parts to a healthy relationship.
Because you're going to be doing this the rest of your life, and you're
bro.
Also showing the tactics and like how you approach those things.
Yeah, well, if you can't tell the truth about stuff like that and the person can't receive it, or you're just, I think this topic's about you can't say it. So if you can't say it, then you don't really care about that person, man.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Period.
A lot of people don't think about that.
Yeah,
they're just like, "Oh, I'm just pleasing them," but you don't actually really care.
You don't really care about them. What you don't want is to lose the battle, because you probably don't know how to deal with somebody getting offended. You're gonna have to be. Man means you know how to like defuse a bomb, right? So like somebody's gonna be like, oh, especially with women. Sometimes, and I'm gonna say this because I love you, ladies, but if they start to cry because you said something,
worst, dude.
Or all of a sudden it's
we're talking about mind game manipulation,
right? But as dudes have to be like, I'm not going to lose the point here. Like, I'll sit here and wait for you to stop. You got some going on, we'll do that. But that doesn't mean the point's gone.
They're trying to derail the narrative.
Yeah. All of a sudden we're just going to talk about that.
Well, so, see, that's a bad sign for you guys out there. So, like, if you do try to say something,
sometimes,
some of the stuff does happen,
or if you get it flipped
red
back
flagged.
on you,
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
so that's it's kind of a dual red flag.
It's gonna happen. I'll tell you, the best matches in the world, y'all, are gonna happen. All that stuff's gonna happen at one point or another. You're gonna be doing that. You're just gonna do it. So just get ready for it.
That's right.
Now, what I can say about the trouble voicing that, why it's a red flag, is because like you need to know if that person can't call you on your BS or whatever.
They don't care about you.
They don't care about you, and you know what else, man, is that they are afraid of conflict, bro. And that is not a good thing. You got a runner on your hands. A person probably gonna run.
It's got a runner on your hands.
Yeah, you got a runner.
Or they're just a doormat.
Yeah, well, they're running in different ways.
They get run on.
Yeah, getting run on and runned out. And
Doesn't sound good. They need help, y'all. Doesn't sound good.
Help them.
So we're gonna circle this thing around back to the kind of overarching view. So we got a couple topics here that could be for anybody and everybody, but now we're going to go at this from a Christian perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let's try this thing out. So
I think like most Christian women they're looking for a spiritual leader in their family. And so like, I guess this last item is looking for some things that would lead you to think he's a good spiritual leader, and these would be red flags that would think he would not be a leader. So we kind of had written down lacking like habits that would imply he is a good spiritual leader, such as like regular prayer, reading, church attendance or has like a small group of men, part of that comes into the quality friends. Does he have quality Christian male friends around him? Because if he does, that's likely going to be a very good sign.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah.
I think man, like a good Christian. We look at the church. We look at like, and I see this happen all the time in churches nowadays, or in like Christian-based relationships. I just say, many times the male will just he looks at Christ. He's like, oh, he's self-sacrificing dude. I can't stand when I call Jesus a dude. But this guy, the King of Kings, laid his life down, and I'm supposed to emulate that somehow, right? What does that mean? And they get sort of fixated with the sacrifice part, and they don't understand that, like, and this is going back to what we were just
the doormat
talking about.
part, less of the
calling
warrior part.
The woman, not even just calling her on a BS, but leading, being able to lead. So when you see a Christian dude who's doing all the devotions, the prayer stuff, and all that, but he's lacking that taking initiative during those hard moments where he's like, you're the wife, you have your role, I have my role. Now this is my time to be able to say yes or no, a hard yes or no on a situation, which we as men have to be able to do, and women have to be able to trust. Because if they're not trusting that their husband can say yes or no and have those hard situations, then they're not trusting that God put the man there with a purpose to do that. And so, in effect, it's not that they're just mad at their husbands. They're actually mad at God. They're actually mad at God for saying, well, this man is taking liberties right now because I don't have the full picture. And God's like, well, yeah, I put him there to protect you during these search situations so that you would listen to him. Because sometimes if there's I heard a story when I was younger. My dad was like, sometimes you don't ask why. You just need to listen. And he's like, if I say duck and you don't duck, somebody's shooting, you might get shot, and there's not enough time in that scenario for me to explain why. And that's my job as a father. You need to trust me when I tell you to do something, not just say why. The why can come later. And so for women, if you have that man who's doing his daily devotions and has a living relationship with Christ, and he has those moments to try and say, here's what's going on, and it's not that I'm coming down on you. This is for us, and I'm actually playing my role the way God intended it to. And he can do that. That's one indicator you found a man who's doing the right thing. But if you find a Christian dude who's just like can't do that, then he's a little broken in that area. Maybe he's just focusing on the self-sacrifice part in all the wrong ways, because Jesus does a lot more than just that. So I would say that if you're trying to evaluate a man, sometimes you'll see a man who's like got all the devotionary things there, but he's missing some of that manhood that Christ has in our lives. And I see a lot in the Western church where he's not able to lead, and the wife is okay with that, and it's just like it's a little broken for that reason. And it's like you'll be a lot happier following him because you got trust in him, and then your relationship looks stronger because you trust in each other, and then you get through enough of those moments where he's got your best interest in mind.
Well, you should be able to talk about stuff. Like, that's what it's all about. It's like, yeah, like you should be able to have, a woman shouldn't just be like, I've got the answer, neither should the guy. I mean, like, if they do have that, does happen. I'm not saying it does not happen.
For instance, a hypothetical. Like,
but you should be able to have a conversation about it. I know a lot what you're saying is a lot of guys end up just letting the wife call the shots.
Yeah.
Whether it's the budgeting, whether it's like where the kids go to school, whether it's like a lot of these subjects, there's a lot of guys that don't give they don't have the time, or they don't care about. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But it definitely is one of those things. It's like it should be equally yoked in a lot of things. There's two perspectives that go along.
I'm not
with
saying
it.
It's not. I'm saying it's yoked in the proper identities that God has given you.
Right, because in the churches you see women leading pretty much everything,
and that's not necessarily. That's not right. According to the Bible, yes, they lead some. It's not a. We're not keeping checks and balances
because what you're saying
we're
is
trying
like,
to say
there's a lot of guys that actually do have like good prayer lives intact,
but they're actually neglecting that.
They
part.
have like they're neglecting the sort of like being able to voice. And sort of
so
like
I'm going to bring up assert, and their wives don't like it when they do. So
it's not a good thing.
But
dude.
look. So hypothetical here,
turning your guy,
say for instance,
chopping his nuts off.
Castration, spiritual castration. Well, and what you're doing is anyway. Point is, little hypothetical for you guys here. Like, think about this: what if wife wants to go to one church, husband wants to go to another church, kids stuck in the middle? What do? Right? The husband is supposed
Nobody goes to church.
The husband is supposed to evaluate that spiritual situation and make the choice. It's a hard one to swallow, but that's what's supposed to happen in a properly healthy, functioning relationship. You're not supposed to allow them to go to different churches. They're supposed to be unified as a family and go together. And that decision, it's a tough one because she might like the worship more in this one. He might say the teaching is better in this one. What comes in as top priority? Teaching. So we're going to go to this church, right? Those are the situations where you need spiritual leadership for it to happen. And if the husband's not taking initiative, he's not reading, he's not praying, he's not got a living relationship with God, then he's not entitled to make those decisions. And the wife who has a living relationship probably knows the better church to go to. So you have to evaluate it from the relationship with Christ before you say, what's going on here in this relationship?
So this is
Right.
pretty far down into the relationship. Let's say they just met. Just how you doing? Met at church, which never happens. But let's say we met at church, right? And you're talking to the girl, and you're like, yeah, you're just trying to sort out, like, what is she? Is she a cookie cutter Christian? Is she just like here with her parents? Does she actually have a relationship with Jesus? Like, does she read her Bible? How close is she? Like, how important is this to her? Is she whack? Is she not? You're trying to assess, like, where her priorities are within, like, why you guys even met at church, right? So, like, what are some like red flags for a dude? That's in church that looks good. He's dressed
We
up
should probably
nice.
finish the female side though.
Well, we were here on the dudes. We could. I mean, we could kind of go
it's
down.
tempting. Let's do the
Though
dudes,
they're kind of both similar, but
Yeah.
we're here on the dudes anyway. So, like,
They are similar.
we'll do the dudes. But I'm just gonna act like I'm a chick. You know what I mean? He looks good. He's dressed up. He knows a couple Bible verses. He knows he prays before dinner, right, and that kind of stuff, right? But then I'm gonna probably want to know, like when does it get real? It's usually within, like, trials and like tribulation. It's like
Test
in the
of
tough
faith,
times.
right?
You know what I mean? It's like, did he just grow up? Is he one of those, like, guys that grew up in church? Those really good lives. You know what I mean? Like, maybe
We're
too
not
good.
talking about you, Mike.
I'm not talking about Mike.
I'll take it.
But like, has he been? Because that's not fair. Mike's been through some serious.
No, of course he has.
So, but the idea is I would try to probe in and try to see, like, where's the root? Is it a deep one? Is it not a deep one? You know what I mean? I'd probably ask those questions.
Maybe you could throw out a couple, like,
hypotheticals.
What would you, like, take some bait? I don't know how bad that is. Maybe it's bad. I don't want to be careful, but, like, somebody you just meet to try and, fish the truth out of them and be like, I don't think daily devotions and prayer are that important.
Because it gets so weird,
I don't
though.
think you really need it.
It gets so
to go
weird.
to heaven, right? And then see how they respond. Maybe they'll be like, you got this seriously, my brother, my sister. Like, it's time to talk. And then that would be like, well, this person actually cares about me. I'm just a person in the church, and they want me to have a closer relationship with God. That's cool. Sort of throw out ask some questions, the way that goes down. But as far as, like, the fake Christians, I hate using that word because
The cookie cutters.
I'm the cookie cutters. But, like, if I saw, because this is rough, man. Because, like, I know I could be indicted on so many things.
So that's what I'm saying.
Because, like, yeah, that's what
I'm
I'm
talking
saying.
about. I'm talking
Yeah,
for
yeah.
some of those guys
Yeah,
out there.
yeah, because-
some of, like, what I would be looked at. They'd probably be like, long hair, occasionally curses, and smoke some weed. Definitely going to hell. And, don't listen to this guy.
He
at
likes
all.
the metal guitars. This
He
guy
listens to heavy
of
metal.
the devil.
He writes heavy metal. Devil's music. What are you talking
So,
about?
like, I think that's more or less social convention associated with cliche, and that's not what we're talking about. So, like, as a
that's
real,
why I bring it up.
right? No, I agree. That's why it's an essential part to being able to evaluate a person with a living, walking, breathing relationship with Christ. So, they can look sort of repellent according to your culture and whatever you're coming from.
I think one way at some point have them tell them your testimony.
That's a great one.
I think how they describe that and what they talk about, I think would tell you a lot about how real their relationship is.
Definitely.
Because
That's
it's
an
going to be so
easy one.
different for everybody. It's like there's not this one mold you can just jack on them and be like, oh, but when you hear them talk about, if that guy saved his life or not.
Yeah, that's so true.
You'd be like, I wouldn't, you'll know right off the bat, this is real, dude. This guy's here because.
Yeah, and if they tell you to watch a YouTube video of them doing it, just be careful with that. I'm just kidding. Shout out to you, Phil. So, yeah, testimonies are important. Where did God meet you? Who is God to you now? let's talk about that. That's a really intimate
Yeah,
way
because
to
if they're
talk,
if
too.
they're
I mean,
if they're
that's
using a
just
lot of like the terminology, if they're using that Christianese that's so often like they use it at church.
it's like a script.
It's a script. Everyone agrees with it. They're like, you know what? We're on the same page, baby, and that feels good. It feels good. It feels good. It's non-threatening, and it's everyone's using the same words. All right, we're on the same boat. Everyone's happy. Once again, good vibes.
Yep.
We're all about these good vibes here in church too, man. It's like don't say anything that's really
another idea I had
same
was
Christianese.
Yeah.
if you meet this Christian dude and he's saying all the right things, go on his Instagram and see what he follows.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I think if you
That's
get
a
this
good one.
Christian guy and he's just following a bunch of like thoughts and ridiculous stuff, like that'll tell you a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
see
his
who he
posts,
follows.
and his
There's a bunch
posts.
of chicks, dude, or is he following like Stoics and like philosophers
Yeah.
or like, nature stuff or like what's he following? That's a great one, dude.
Yeah.
That's a really good insight
Yeah,
on the
well,
social media.
Appetites, what you're
Right.
attracted
And
to,
one thing I was
yeah.
trying to get at with the Christianese thing is
Uh-huh.
if it's authentic, you'll hear them using words that are not Christianese within their testimony.
True.
It'll be like
True.
more of a real story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you'll see the work that's been done within that story as like being more authentic because they're not painting with using the same colors everyone is. It's like those are the colors that were available at the time, and that's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's fair because there's pressure from the church to fit in. And if you can talk individually with your uniqueness that God gave you, then that's a sign of spiritual maturity.
Right, because we don't want these guys to be fitting in all the time.
that's
You know what I
right.
mean? We want our Peters, we want our Pauls. We want these guys, we want our King Davids. You know what I mean? We want these guys to be able to stand out, even if the church is going wrong, and be able to call the
I'd
church
say-
out. We always hear about the church calling out the people in the church, but we're supposed to call the church out. It's like government and people. Like the church was made for the people. Government was made for the people. It shouldn't get those roles reversed, and the way that things are going.
That's true.
So, like, you need to have a man with some cojones that's able to be like, man, this church is not for us, babe. Like, I know you like the worship and stuff, but half the stuff that's going on in here is not
Ain't
for us.
kosher, man.
So you got to have a guy that's able to disagree and use and be real with what's going on around him, and not just be like a Christianese parrot talker that looks
think,
good on Sundays.
Yeah.
I think another one that we had on that same point, it'd be not immediately a conversation, but if he takes the lead on setting like sexual boundaries, I think
That's
would
a
be
great one.
a great sign because
Let's talk about that one, because
and-
sex is such a big deal in today's world.
Yeah,
it's
I think
always
we'll
been
just
a
set
big
this-
deal. I am not
we'll
a
just-
virgin. I have trouble even understanding how to remain before marriage. It seems like the most hardest impossible thing in the world, but it's absolutely possible.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of guys
we're
that
not
do
going
this.
to sugarcoat that. These if you're a Christian and think you don't have to wait till marriage, you just lying to yourself because that's completely you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
It's not biblical.
Well, I mean,
that's for sure.
Go ahead, Mike.
And so if the guy like somewhat upfront like sets those expectations, I think that'd be a huge green flag.
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't, I don't know if I'd just necessarily view it as a red flag because you might not want to bridge the or that's an awkward conversation. But you could you could test the guy. Like I've had girls test me. Like they'll just kind of like in some way throw out that they have that expectation and just see his reaction.
Yeah.
Might as well lay that out there pretty soon too, because it's like if you're getting 5 dates into
agree.
this and like wasting your time because he's going to have the expectation of not waiting, like what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Right, it's
Why
a
are you
little
doing it?
bit of a-
I think to try and really push this home for the younger guys, and I can speak for the guys right now. I know women have sexual gravity that's probably as hard to deal with as ours, but it can work,
I
man.
don't think so.
And I think that a lot of what we believe in as men and women of faith is that God has a process to things that if we go by, we're going to have the most fulfillment. And fulfillment in a relationship it's what ends up getting you through the hard
well, we've
times.
talked about this
So
quite a bit.
when I look at sex, it's the consummation of a relationship. So it's important to realize what that is. Consummation means like to connect. It's this conciliatory. It's like the emblematic part of it all, and it's an action. It's a real action. When you look at what it means to engage in another person that way under those circumstances, it is the most special thing you can do. And so,
if you have
save it.
somebody that's saving it, it's even all the more special. It's
It
a
is.
sign that they're going to respect you.
Mm-hmm.
and your relationship so much more that they're able to put their animalistic. I mean, as a man, we have so much testosterone. It's funny. It reminded me of that video you sent me of that one chick that actually got on like what was it? It was like she had a hormone therapy
It
going
was the
on.
doctor was talking about these trans women she dealt with who had taken testosterone. Would that be the term, trans women? I don't know how that works, but trans man, I don't know. But anyway,
man,
all these
that's now
women,
a woman.
No,
all
a
these
woman
women
that's trying to go dude.
all
that's
these
what I
women
meant.
that
That's what I meant.
took testosterone apparently reported like almost some of them are just shocked at what happened to their sex drive, and they're like, "Oh, now I understand what's going on in their brain."
Yeah, that's what I was
it
about
be
to call you
cool,
out,
like,
John. When you're like, they have
Did
the
you
same
watch
desires.
that movie?
Nah.
It's called like Spiderhead or something. It's got Chris Hemsworth in it, and he's got all these people attached to this drug tool. It's like on their spine, and he'll like release drugs in them, and they have these results, right? So one's love, another one's this, all this stuff. But it'd be interesting to see if some females could actually interact with our reality for a second and be like, "That's okay."
Well, just
wow,
imagine
she
being a
actually-
female for a second. Like, you don't have the sex drive males have. Males do have this giant sex drive, so you have like ultimate power. You're just like,
Oh my gosh!
I can dominate you. I know I'm not gonna have this like this passion within
That's
me.
funny.
But as a woman, it's a good thing if you could see a man sort of like tame that shit
That's
down.
right. Yeah.
Well, you
You
would
know,
have like
for
the
a
trust. The
relationship.
trust would be like that'd be the biggest form of trust. Like you don't have to worry about this guy probably cheating on you.
Mhm.
Like ever.
Oh, that's a good
if
point.
he's willing to
That's a
like
good point.
wait, like those kinds of threats, I would think would be kind of gone.
Yeah, but I think that
And
what happens in the relationship itself is you're trusting God. He told you to do something, and you're being obedient. You know, I don't know that there's much more we have to say about that than and it's so funny because we have to elaborate on these things to push points home. But ultimately, when God tells you to do something, you do it. We talked about baptism a while back, and it's like, do you think everybody knew why they had to be baptized and all these, like, you know, the fine print in it all and the purpose? They just did it because Jesus said to do it or the disciples said to do it. They were
Mhm.
obeying truth. And then all that other stuff comes, you know, and so it'd be so nice to hear more from these people who've waited and adhered to this process that Christ has for us so that you could understand some of what we have to gain, because the world is so ripe with all the stories of promiscuity and taste testing and you deserve this and this is proper and it's actually going to help you pick the right mate. You know, like it's just crazy. At the end of the day, we don't have enough of those stories that are, and it's because it's the finer path. It's the narrow gates.
Well, I like
the
to
narrow
go
path.
into some of those finer paths in the church that get married in like 3 months just so they can, you know, I mean, their hormones are blasting.
No, it happens
We
all
just
the time.
address this with the girls and the boys. It's like they're very young. Let's say they're 18, whatever, 22. And then here they are. They find someone in church they're attracted to.
Can you imagine how
Right?
hard it is to be
And
parents
then
of
they're
that
like,
kind of situation?
We're attracted, and their hormones are flying. They're immature, dude, and they're like, "What else do we have to wait for? Let's get married, right?"
Yeah.
A lot of these relationships work. I'm not going to say they
I think
don't.
the majority of
A
them
lot
do.
of them do, but you do see this. What I'm trying to get at is that sometimes people get married to have sex
Mhm.
in the Christian community, and that is not okay.
Well, I mean, it's a piece of the puzzle.
I kind of think like God obviously designed these cocktails in their brain for a reason. I
Yeah.
kind of think
I agree. They're
he-
motivators.
they're motivated.
Why are they
You could
there?
say that.
Why are they there? I think it's probably to make us like go at or like commit to each other.
But you have to think, like, if you really wanted to take this apart, it only works under the circumstances of a relationship that accepts sex as a consummation and is going to be final. It doesn't work in the sense of having multiple partners and being promiscuous. That's where you enter into trouble.
Mhm.
Because, yeah, it's a motivating factor. But I think, again, this is where Satan, this is his rules, this is his world. Because, like, if we grew up in a village or a city where that was the way it was done, I'm sure in those church situations like Joe was talking about, you'd be more selective with your mate, too. You'd
What about
understand.
Old
You
Testament?
take your time with that. What about Old Testament?
What about concubines and like multiple wives?
Dude,
Like, how did that change from the New Testament from the Old Testament?
it was always bad. Like, you know, you're not going to see in the New Testament laws about cutting somebody off in traffic. Okay? And you can hear an amen in the crowd when you hear that because it's like,
Amen.
I done did that. But, you know, there's this elevation of conscience in regard to right and wrong that Christ expects us to know. So, I mean, like having a relationship when you're spread out and you're having this is where self-examination is required, because what does this process of perfection look like in the long run? Is we're getting better at recognizing sin. So there's like easy sin that we first go into once you're saved, right? Like these gimmies, right? The 10 Commandments, whatever. But underneath, cascading underneath these 10 Commandments are all of these like nuanced versions of these things. Like Christ said, it starts in the thought. A lot of people are like, well, when I steal something, that's when I've sinned. It's like, no, that's actually the last sin and a link of sinning that started with you thinking about stealing that object.
A lot of
There's
sin.
actually a lot more sin going on than that. And that's what you begin to understand as you get more mature in Christ. That's what also makes you humble, and that's what also makes you bold. Because when you're humble, you understand that this is where you're at, but it makes you bold because Christ is helping you to see deeper. So when I look at the concubines of the Old Testament, what I understand is the Old Testament tells us stories not in the way that we do now with a lot of like commentary and example, but we have to look at the story and say, what has it done for the person? Every single time we see somebody with a lot of wives or concubines, it creates disruption in their life. And we know that because all of the stories follow that same exact example. So while they weren't saying this is overtly wrong, what they're saying is like, well, you know, what do we know? Sin leads to death. Being obedient leads to life. So if I have some of these things in my life that I'm doing that are obviously leading to death, it might not be like underlined as a sin in the Bible, but God gave you a conscience and he put it in your heart so you know it is. You know it's not for you to do. So don't do it because it's going to lead you down to the death. So like concubines, the kings and these guys were allowed to have them. They're allowed to have a bunch of them. But did it make their relationship with God better? No. Usually they believed, like with Solomon, he had wives that believed in other things that affected him.
I think it's cultural differences too of the times.
Oh,
Kind of like slavery was fine then. And it's not like the New Testament went and said slavery is nope. Like
No,
there's
Paul specifically
there's
says
specific-
honor your master. and
yeah,
all
it
kinds of
talks
stuff.
about-
But he also says there's no slave. No, he talks about that, and he also talks about masters being and those slaves. To be honest with you, weren't the slaves
They're
in
like-
the New Testament
they're
were
like
not the
indentured
same.
service.
Yeah, they were not. They had more rights.
they're paying, yeah.
Still a slave, dude.
I'm just saying, dude. That when you,
It's not sugarcoated.
I'm not sugarcoating it, dude.
They were
When
not
you-
free people.
No, and neither are we under our circumstances. If you think
That's
about
a fact.
it. Yeah, we're not that free either. You
Nope.
don't even really own this house. You know,
No,
you don't.
anything.
You don't pay your bills. You're going to be in trouble. You know, so like it's the same thing. I'm just being honest, right?
Oh my
So,
God.
yeah, it's a mind blower, right? You
Yeah.
are a slave. We are slaves to certain things. But what I'm trying
Let's
to
go
express,
back to purity, though.
what I wanted to, because I think Mike brings up a good point, is like we do have to evaluate the text from a cultural, not a time period,
Mhm.
you know, and certain things. But I do want to make sure the listeners know that when Paul says stuff like there is no Jew, Gentile, slave, or you know all these things, and he makes sure that people are being treated fairly. That's an indication that people shouldn't lord themselves over people. And you don't have to know you're a slave to be a slave. There's plenty of churches out there where a leader is sort of exalted into a position and he lords over people, and people accept that. You know, we see that all the time. And they don't have a bond.
It's called tyranny.
Yeah, it's tyranny. It's
Yeah.
fascism.
A lot of people love it.
Apparently so. Because there's
It's
a lot
easy.
of,
You don't have
What-
to make your own
Yeah,
decisions.
you know,
What
it's
level? If slavery is like 100% taxation, what level of taxation is slavery? I guess is the better question.
Full taxation.
No, it wouldn't even be because technically, a slave, you're getting a place to stay and you're getting food, so you get some income because you're not just like dying.
You're persisting in life. 'cause
Yeah,
it's
you're
getting-
getting sustenance, you're alive, like, and so they're getting quote housing and food paid for as a slave. So then it's like, what level of taxation would be slavery?
I think a lot of it
70,
has to
80%?
do with
Mhm.
the interest
Basic needs.
of whose interests are being. I guess my answer would be like whose interests are being most paid attention to. So am I feeding this guy just so he has enough to live to go plow my field?
3 grains
Well,
of rice.
Right, that's it. You know, like exact macros for expenditure. Like God, that might as well be hell. But so I'd say.
This is a total tangent. Too.
It is a tangent, but no, I could try. We can try and relate it back, you know, because it's kind of fun. Because we are all slaves to certain things, you know. I think that's what we're trying to realize, and this is what the question is: is like, how much is it doing for you? Like, if I'm playing guitar or playing video games, or I'm slave to something, my dopamine processes have turned me into a slave for something. You do have to ask yourself, how much is this giving back to my life, right? So I think that's something we all need to exercise. So I'll just kind of leave that.
That's
as
why
a,
fasting.
As a nice
If your
turnaround.
man is
Yeah.
like, you meet him at church, and he's like, I'm on a 3-day fast. Be like, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
He's able to put his shit in order for 3 days
That
and,
is pretty cool.
abstain and actually have some willpower, because willpower is so important. I think that's kind of what we're getting at. If you want to be a man, you better have willpower on your side. You better be able to abstain. Like, when that goes into purity, those things are a big deal. So, and I want to ask you, Mike, like, what about purity is so, like, within you wanting a woman, you know what I mean? And like for instance, this is a bit of a tangent, but like being sanctified, and like we talked about with other girls, where it's like, oh, you shouldn't worry about a woman's past when she's with Jesus, because she's been sanctified and she's a new creation, and there's nothing to be, you can't view her as the old creation. That's not forgiveness. You're not doing what Christ wants you to do for you, so you can't do that to her. And sort of like this idea of purity in the church, and sort of how, like, I've heard it seems like it all goes off to the girls. Always like the girls need to be pure. The girls need to be pure, but like the guys do too, obviously.
Yeah.
I've kind of felt that way growing up, but I do see how there is kind of like an
Well, it's just
sort of like
we're not equal.
more guys want pure girls and girls want pure guys.
Girls don't care about it nearly as we do.
Why is that?
I think it's just a difference. I think it's a biology reason in the end. I think
Go on.
I think men, I think it's ingrained in us to really care. Like, for all of our human history, we've wanted, virgin brides were like, that was the thing. That's why they walked down the aisle with the white dress. Like, it is a metaphor for purity.
Right.
And that became, I think, a big reason of that is what they theorize is men care so much about knowing the child is theirs. And until recently, you had had no way to know that in the past. So if you have a promiscuous girl, you don't really, like, if she gets pregnant, you kind of don't know.
Who is my baby's dad?
Yeah, whereas girls don't have to carry about that with men because it's their kid.
Yeah.
And so, like, that concern is of zero, like, concern to them. And then there's kind of like this difference in how like, as women are born with their value, like they don't have to earn their value. They're born with their beauty
too.
Yeah, and they're born with that. So they just, like, their job basically is to retain as much of their value as they can. Whereas men have to earn their value, have to build themselves, and a lot of times that comes with the attraction of women. As men build themselves, they gain more attraction from women. And then
unless you're a rich boy, blah, blah,
that
blah.
pre-selection process, women want men that are desirable by other women. And you see that actually amongst secular women. Like, Christian women are a little different because they'll want the purity more so. But secular women do not care about a man's past, like, most of the time, unless it's just, like, outrageous.
I heard this.
But I even had it tested. Like, I was talking to a Christian girl recently, and she didn't really understand the secular girl's perspective. So she did ask, like, would you, like, one of her secular friends, if she would date or be interested in a virgin man? And she was like, no. Wow. Like, girls view that as, like, something wrong with him.
Successful.
Yeah, like, girls don't want him for some reason. No man is choosing that out, or most men aren't choosing that.
Oh, okay.
So there's, like, a reason for it. Then something's
right.
wrong.
It's like, if you have a herd of animals and there's one by itself, it's a black sheep thing.
Yeah, it's the black sheep mentality.
So there's just, like, a
rarity turns against you.
Completely different foundation to how we view these things that stems a lot outside of our kind of, like, control of.
Yeah, that's why
I heard this weird quote though. Hopefully you're not going to butcher this, but I think I'm going to.
Butcher it.
Hopefully you're the first love of your wife, and your husband, you are his last love. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Because, like, you don't, like, when a woman is, like, fresh and to me, I don't see it so much as sexually, but, like, once a woman's heart gets broken, like, that's really hard to deal with. You know what I mean? Those insecurities
dudes too,
and stuff, and the way. Well, dudes too.
Yeah, I mean, we can't.
Everybody. I'm not going to say no.
Do that, yeah.
But I think, like, women being more emotional and more, like, tending to, like, think about the past and, like, all those things, and just they're more analytical and more.
I won't say analytical.
Not analytical. What's the one word Jordan uses all the time?
To describe women?
Oh yeah.
Neurotic. They have higher nurse.
Yeah.
Yes, right. That's the one. It's not a bad thing, but it's just the way that they look at things. It just, I think for the first time, the broken heart, it affects usually girls a little differently than they do for dudes. I don't know if that's true or not. It could be a crock of shit. I know it affected me deeply, and I was obsessed with all my girlfriends for way too long. I should have just been like, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah,
But that being said, the whole thing is like, if you're her first love and the guy's last love, then that's saying something.
Well, men value inexperience, and women value experience out of men. Women don't want some 18-year-old kid who has no life experience with but we would take that.
What I see happening a lot in this conversation that we just cropped up here is like the secular version, and then the church-based Christian version that we should be using to develop our ideas of what is attractive. Because women the Bible describes even. It's even. Like, you shouldn't go for a man that's got more experience or a woman. Like, these things are completely even when it comes to
they're not
purity.
really talked about, but
Well, purity is purity, right?
Yeah,
purity is purity on both sides. That's all I'm saying right now. Is that's the way it should be.
But like Mike said, it's like if the woman goes up in the white dress.
No, I get
the
it.
guys don't. You don't see a guy who's like, look at
it
how
wasn't
pure
always
I
that
am.
way. That wasn't.
It's not the way it works.
Look, dude.
The convention is women to be pure more than
That's
the dudes.
what I'm saying. That's
for
secular.
sure.
That's secular. I'm sorry to say it is. That's just the bottom freaking line. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Coming from a biblical perspective, purity is appreciated in the same way as a sense of value for your partner, for both the male and the female. And I mean that's just the way that's the way it should be.
Women, I would say, women are just more forgiving of it. Men will put their foot down, like, you got this past, sorry. Yeah. And women are usually they don't want to know about it. Just
where in the New Testament does it talk about being a virgin before marriage for men and women?
Paul talks about it.
He talks about sexual immorality. Immortality. I'm kidding. Sorry.
Paul talks about it, and he I can look up some of the verses to kind of show you.
Yeah,
it is one of those.
Because I've been reading through Timothy and Ephesians and Corinthians and Acts, and he talks a lot about sexual perversion. He talks a lot about these different sexual acts, mostly between like guys being like gay. And then he talks about
it's a paradox anyway, because if the
orgies.
women are supposed to be virgins, who's going to sleep with them? Or like who the men are going to like. So if all the women are not going to sleep with men until marriage, like, then we're going to be pure too.
Okay, that kind of makes sense.
So
so there's not promiscuity going on in the church. It can't be.
Yeah, it really couldn't be. It shouldn't be happening in that sense.
Okay, so Hebrews 13:4, let the marriage be held in honor among all, and let the marriage bed be undefiled, for God will judge sexual, immoral, and adulterous. And it's funny how you see that sequence of words, that process of words, sexually, immoral, and adulterous. It's the same thing we just read in Matthew 15, where he's like, evil thoughts, out of the heart come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, adultery. And so like there's those two sexual perversions that are going on. One for people that are already married, and then obviously the first one for people who aren't married.
Right.
So defilement. And I
then,
guess we can go into Corinthians here. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think part of it too, like all religions, I think apparently, so like have viewed virgin women as like the ideal. Like I think that's pretty much a human nature preference, and I think a lot of that, from what I've heard explained, it's just because it's all to do with the child side of things. Like women have such a burden to bear with children that it's like if you tell them to go sow your seeds like when they're young and they get pregnant by some loser, like it's just a lose-lose for everyone. It's a lose for the society. It's a lose for the family. It's a lose for her, and he might not have much of a loss. So
you're right. That's exactly what I told.
In most societies, like today, you have to pay money, but
that was my rebuttal. Well, that's exactly what I said, because it's like if a girl has sex, she's got to have a baby. Back then, it's like if a guy has sex, he's
and that's why we see the
not
difference today.
That's like the difference. That's
they
why
took the shackles off off women today with birth control, abortion, and Plan B pills and stuff. So now they can go do the shackles have been taken off, and we're seeing the results.
So we're talking about
what are the results?
I got a verse for us. It's a cool one because it's going to kind of even the playing field. We're talking about like very practical reasons of why society might suffer from this kind of stuff, right? which anybody can apply regardless of your faith, right?
Mhm.
And that's cool because God's law works. It
Yeah.
just freaking works
Just
across
makes
the
sense.
board. It just makes sense. So 1 Corinthians 6:18, this is going to talk about the spirit and what the spirit can sort of incur as a damage by sexual immoral behavior. So Paul says, flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexual immoral person sins against his own body. It's funny how he used his. Or do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God, my bad. You are not your own, for you are bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. Now, it's hard to understand that because I feel like we all here don't put one sin above another. We had our good friend on the podcast, Samuel, and he talked about that, and it's true. Sin is sin. But however, what we are understanding by some of this stuff is there's impacts that are meant to be taken into account. And those impacts are different for different sins. But when he's saying it, because if I lie and lie and lie, it's going to affect my mind. It's going to affect my conscience. In many ways, you can say that affects your spirit, right? So if I eat bad or gluttony or any of these other sins, take your pick, man. You'll see it affects definitely your spirit. You're sort of ousting. You're taking something in. You're making an exchange for
But
sin.
your body too.
But your body too.
That's what
but
we're
there's
talking about purity.
something
It's like you're
interesting
having a
about
baby.
sexual. There's something more, okay, because he says
STDs.
every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexual moral person sins against his own body. So that's something to take into account, is that there's a very extreme version of how that's impacting you negatively. Like, it sounds like Paul is trying to say this is the damage you're doing to yourself is pretty serious.
It's a little different.
It's a little different, and it's actually going to be in your spirit. You're sinning against your you're sinning against your own body. So it's your body that he's talking about. So and that's what I was trying to underscore. Is like, yeah, you can lie a lot, and that might not make you a fat person, right? Or that might not make you sick. But if you're having sexual immorality all the time, it's going to affect your actual body, right? So that's what it sounds like he's saying here.
Well, I was gonna say, to go back to your original question too, I think the what gets erroneously conflated when we have problems with women's past is that we're making a moral judgment. We're not. Like we know they're sanctified in Christ. It's more of a attraction judgment. Like I'm not attracted to a girl who's had a really promiscuous past. I'm not saying she's morally a bad person. It's an attraction thing. And it's kind of just built into men, I think.
Yeah. And I think that if God tells you to go marry, you have to be sensitive to what God wants you to do. And so what you're attracted to, I mean, let's be real, guys. You can be attracted to complete steaming piles of hot garbage, and that might be your thing. It's hard to try and retool some of this stuff. And you have to be like, I agree with the Bible instead of what I'm attracted to, and I'm going to pick a good mate because a good mate is clearly a good mate, not just what I'm attracted to. So I get that. You know what I mean? I do understand what you're saying there, because it's just innate within us. We don't want a woman that's been run through. No one really does want that. And so if anything, that's more of that for the woman to maintain her purity. And I know it's for women too. I know for a fact they don't want a man hoe. Most of them don't want that. They don't want somebody who's.
They might start doing.
They
in the
don't
future.
think that. Yeah,
Just
I mean, they
not
might
go in.
fantasize about it. Sure, like a fantasy of this, Chippendale figure, whatever. I don't know what they'd fantasize about, but something like
Fantasies
that.
better
I think
than
the
reality.
Christian girls, though, I think the secular girls, they
They don't care.
They don't care. For my
Maybe
So long as you got the
get in the
fat
comments.
wallet, son, and you got the career, and you got all the other stuff,
They
the
view-
lifestyle to go along with it, they could care less.
They
That's
view
what-
it as a sense of. I remember I did have this conversation once with this girl of dealing with a promiscuous man, and in her mind, she just viewed it great. Like, this guy has had so many options with women, and he's picking me now.
Ew. What
And,
is
like,
that?
Like, in her, that was her mindset on it. Like, she viewed I came out on top here. I'm being chosen out of. He discarded, and it's delusion because it's like you're obviously going to get
He
discarded
didn't
next,
discard him.
huh?
He wasn't being monogamous with her, was he?
Was he? Or were
I
they
don't
just
I don't
dating?
know. I don't know at that situation, but
because there's a lot of chicks that are okay.
but
with
yeah,
not even that.
I've brought that up I brought that up specifically to her. Like, if you're number 62, what makes you think he's going to stop at 62? And they don't really. They just kind of
great point.
They view it. Some
It's
of
an
those girls
accomplishment.
view
You know,
it as,
I've heard the same, maybe the same idea for some of these nasty girls out there that are like, you know, they see a ring on a dude's finger and they're like
challenge accepted.
And basically, you know, like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff
Ooh.
exists too. There's all kinds of perversions of attraction, which we have to understand. Like that was going to be my point that I was going to kind of try and say to, like, we have these secular Hollywood versions of attraction that are sold to us and honestly flog rod just jammed down our throats, you know, and it's like it's impossible to get away from it, you know, and it's going to affect how you view what is attractive. You know, do you see modesty as attractive, or do you see, like, you know, and I'm not opposed to a girl showing her cleavage sometimes. I'm not opposed to, like, you know, I don't want to expect her to dress up in a wool suit every single time she goes out into the beach, you know, like they did in the 50s. I don't expect that. But what I do know is that my attraction will begin to be changed by God, dependent upon my relationship with Him, which will change. Hopefully that's for the better, you know. So, you know, if you pick a wife and you're attracted to hoes for whatever reason, or, you know, just like women that are shallow, you want a trophy wife, that's going to change hopefully for you. I hope that God will help change that inside of your life. And same thing for women. You know, if you want this alpha dude who's like, you know, this guy, and you're going to be the one to change his life, like, maybe think about that a little more. You know? Maybe there's some better ones in your church that you're not thinking about because they don't have all this, you know, stuff.
Indoctrination has been programmed.
I mean, let's be honest, dude. We're all very programmable creatures. You look at all the different cultures out there and what's acceptable, and it's all, you know, it's pretty. Don't think you're not, because you are.
I want me a natural beauty, baby.
That's a tangent though, but like, I heard this Chinese guy, he married this lady, and they had kids, and they came out like butt ass ugly. And he was like, what were you before? Found out she was like a total toad. And then he's like, sooner. He's like, because she got all this work done. You know, and he's like, I had no way to tell what she actually was, and now I had kids, and now my DNA is
That's a lie, dude.
No,
you couldn't see that Botox.
He couldn't.
That's why.
Yeah, like when he cracked the joke, you didn't see like one eyebrow go lower.
When I was in I think this realization spawned in middle school.
Girls are getting work done.
But I remember
younger now.
I remember when I was in middle school, I liked the ones that wore makeup, and I didn't know they wore makeup. I didn't know why. I liked them better. Their lips were redder. They had blush on. They just looked more attractive.
That's why.
Those are there's biological reasons why you're attracted to that.
And then I saw them without the makeup, bro.
Nope.
And I was like, this is crazy. Because, you know, when you're a kid, you just look at girls, and then women are women. You kind of like put them in different categories. And then once they finally kind of start to try and be like Little Women, and then I was like, nah, dude, that's crazy. Like, she can look that good and then not that good. And that's when I just started being like Joe. I was like, natural beauties, bro. Everything stripped off.
Yeah, I know beauty when I see it, dude. You could be dressed up in a potato sack. I'd be like, that's the one right there, dude.
That's a good one.
Hair's not done, nails not done, no makeup. She's beautiful, bro. Like, yeah, that's what I want.
That's a good note to end on.
A potato sack.
Oh my gosh,
Get
dude.
down with that.
I feel like we're letting down all the other girls that may not have been born with all
No,
this stuff.
I'm thinking about
Because
getting work done. I'm
you
a
know
man.
what? I'd be like, make yourself as attractive as you can.
Wrinkles suck.
You know, like, they
be
do.
real.
And, you know, like, if you got some work you can do, go do it.
Nothing against that.
Yeah.
All for
And I'm not talking about Botox work. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking
Even
about,
then,
like,
if you want to do that, go do it.
yeah, fine. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to judge and be like, but, you know, if that
I was just saying, optimally, that's what I just would like.
before you get the Botox, hit the gym. All right, that's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say.
before your hair
Boom.
gets done,
Okay.
hit the gym.
Yeah,
Right?
Before the makeup, gym.
Yeah. Everything gym, for sure.
All right. Lord, thank you so much for this conversation. I just pray that it can be used for good, and our audience will learn from this, God, and that we can just bless them with this, and Lord, that they would also just give us some feedback too. I think we can learn from each other. I'm sure they got their own red flags that they've seen in their experience that we can all glean off of as well. Thank you so much for this day, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.